What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Chelsea have just crashed out of the Champions League after losing 2-0 at home and 4-0 on aggregate against Real Madrid. Dare I say this loss felt worse than the 2-0 defeat at the Bernabeu because Chelsea were actually in this game for the first 60 minutes. I know people will be frustrated about the finishing, and we're going to talk about that in this video, but watching that game, I was also frustrated by the chance creation in the final third. After the first leg last week, I discussed how I had two broad issues with Frank Lampard's strategy for that game. The first was the execution of that sit back and counterattack strategy, and the second was how defensive Chelsea actually were. And in this game, Frank addressed one of those issues but completely ignored the other one, so stay tuned till the end to find out what happened. As always, please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy, and don't forget to turn on all notifications to never miss out on content just like this. In last week's game, we talked about how Real Madrid played in the 3-2-2-3 shape that you see on your screen here, with Benzema through the middle, Vini off the left, and Carvajal overlapping Rodrigo on the right hand side, and then Rodrigo and Camavinga were the two behind the front three, playing in attacking midfield roles in the center and on the left hand side. And then you had Modric and Valverde playing as the double pivot just in behind those two in attacking midfield, and Kroos dropped into the center back line to build up the play from the back. And we highlighted how Real Madrid were funneling their attacks down the left hand side with Benzema, Rodrigo, Camavinga, Vini, and Modric all overloading over on this side. And we also talked about how last week Chelsea struggled to defend against these five with Fofana, James, Sterling, and Kante. But more importantly, whenever Chelsea did win the ball back from this area, they struggled to capitalize on the fact that Camavinga was so far out of position on the left hand side. And the main reason for this was the lack of composure shown by Sterling, Kante, James, and Fofana down this side. And for this week's game, Lampard solved this particular issue by making two key changes to the lineup for this game. He brought in Kai Havertz to the starting 11 to provide more of a target man, someone who can play with their back to goal, hold up the play, and play it into the runners that run behind him. And by the way, go check out last week's video because I called for Havertz to be in the starting 11 for this exact reason. And he also brought in Gallagher into the starting 11, who was pressing Madrid's ball carriers very effectively alongside Kante. So basically, Valverde, Modric, and Kroos were having a very difficult time because of the way that Gallagher and Kante were deployed in the front three. Now let's quickly discuss Chelsea's shape in possession before we talk about how Lampard bottled this game. So Chelsea started in a 3-4-2-1 that played in a 1-4-5 in possession that looked like this. In this shape, you had Havertz up top through the middle playing next to Cucurella and James that were really high and wide. Then you had Gallagher and Kante playing in the inside spaces as number 10s, and this was almost a straight flat line of 5 forwards. Then you had Chalobah and Fofana actually joining Kovacic and Enzo Fernandez in the defensive midfield area, forming this line of 4, and Thiago Silva was the last man holding at the back. And like we already discussed, one of the main reasons for Chelsea controlling possession in the first 60 minutes was that Kante and Gallagher were pressing high from the start, making it really difficult for Kroos, Valverde, and Modric to really do anything effectively on the ball, especially in the defensive and middle third of the pitch. So Madrid really struggled to get into a real rhythm offensively and kept giving the ball away to Chelsea. And the second and more important reason was that Chelsea packed the midfield, effectively playing without a striker at times. Kai Havertz was constantly dropping into the midfield line instead of playing further forward right next to the center backs, making it almost 5 midfielders with Gallagher, Havertz, Kante, Fernandez, and Kovacic against the 3 of Madrid in Valverde, Kroos, and Modric. And this movement from Havertz created two specific issues for Madrid. There was more space for Gallagher and Kante to run in behind Havertz as he pulled out Alaba and Militao to guard him, and there was more space for Reece James and Cucurella on the wings when Havertz dropped into the flanks to create overloads on both sides. So this effectively meant that Chelsea could maintain pressure on Madrid in the final third by always having an extra passing option in midfield, and they had the opportunity to create lots of chances by doing this. As always, we have two clips here to show you exactly what I'm talking about. We start with Enzo Fernandez on the ball in midfield, and you can kind of see the front five shape we talked about here, except that Reece James is missing because he was defending a few seconds ago, and I think he was kind of winded for some reason. As Enzo plays it back to Kovacic, notice how Havertz drops off of Militao up front, and at this moment, both Kante and Cucurella are actually further forward than him in the front line. As Chalobah receives the ball, here we get a better angle of the 1-4-5 formation that we talked about, with Chalobah, Kovacic, Enzo, and Fofana in the defensive midfield line, and a front five of Cucurella, Havertz, Gallagher, and Kante, with Reece James just being out of position as before. As Kovacic is about to play it to Enzo, pay attention to Havertz's movement for the next bit of play, because you'll see how his movement impacts the Madrid defensive structure. So Enzo gets the ball and fizzes one to Havertz, and this pulls Militao out of position towards Havertz, and just look at that room that's available for Kante, Gallagher, and Cucurella to run into. So Havertz lays it off to Gallagher, who plays it off to Cucurella in behind, and Cucurella is basically behind the Madrid defense where he has time and space to put in a good cross. Of course, in this particular occasion, the cross gets blocked, and Chelsea don't really have too many players inside the box anyways. But you can see how Havertz dropping off the Madrid backline was creating overloads in the middle for Chelsea, and it helped them keep Madrid in their own half for most of that first half. Next, we have another clip that shows you Havertz's influence on the game, this time from the right-hand side. We start with Enzo picking up the ball near the edge of the box, and he's about to play it out to Reece James out wide. And this time you can clearly see the front five that I was talking about, as James and Cucurella are both holding out wide, while you have Gallagher, Kante, and Havertz through the middle. As James gets on the ball, we see Havertz on the right side this time, occupying Alaba at left center back over here. As James cycles it back to Enzo, we see Havertz still on Alaba, which has created enough room for both Gallagher and Kante to be inside the box, as we see over here. So Enzo plays it back to Kovacic centrally, and as he's about to drive forward a little, pay attention to Havertz's movement in the next bit of the clip here. So we see Kovacic driving forward, and Havertz drops deeper off of Alaba, which pulls Alaba out as expected, but it's also pulled Camavinga out from left back, which creates this pocket of space for Reece James out wide. From there, it's a simple pass for Havertz out to Reece James, who has tons of room to cross it into the 6-yard box, and this is the chance that Cucurella misses from this area over here, and you can call that a great save from Courtois, whichever way you want to see it. But again, you can see how Havertz makes all of this happen because of his intelligent movement in and around the box, and the fact that he's strong enough to hold the ball when it's fired into him and bring other people into the game. So why did Chelsea, despite doing great things in the build-up that we've just seen in these two clips, not manage to take the chances that they created and not manage to create more chances than they did today? It's because of Lampard's insistence to play one player in the exact same role as the first leg, and that's N'Golo Kante. As you guys saw from the two clips that we just watched, N'Golo Kante was either the furthest or the second furthest forward Chelsea player in that game. As Havertz kept dropping into the midfield, Gallagher and Kante were the de facto strikers for Chelsea, often finding themselves inside the box to get on the end of chances. We talked about this after the first leg. Asking Kante to play intricate passes into the final third and switch play to the other flank or finish off chances is relying on him to make crucial decisions in the final third, which is not his strong suit at all. And today, Chelsea did so many good things in midfield to create space for James and Cucurella out wide, only for them to put crosses into the box for Gallagher and Kante. What sense does that make? In fact, Chelsea created two big chances today, both of which came before Madrid's opening goal in the 58th minute, and they both fell to N'Golo Kante inside the box. And by definition, a big chance is a situation where a player should reasonably be expected to score because it's a clear-cut chance and there's little pressure on the shooter. But to nobody's surprise, Kante bottled both chances. The first one in the 11th minute was a 0.35 xG chance, and the second in the 52nd minute was a 0.32 xG chance. Any of Havertz, Gallagher, Felix, Mudryk, Mount, Pulisic, or Ziyech could have scored those chances. The only man I'm not backing in this situation is Raheem Sterling, because I've seen him miss worse for Chelsea and City. So personally, I think Frank Lampard missed a huge opportunity by not playing a more attacking player instead of Kante in this role today, because I get what he was thinking. Let me use Kante and Gallagher up front to put pressure on the Madrid defense, but let's be honest, Kante's individual brilliance isn't what made it difficult for Madrid. It was the strategy of pressing high in that 1-4-5 system that made it difficult for Madrid. Sure, would a different player be slightly worse than Kante in executing that press? Maybe. but that same player would be 1,000 times better going forward than Kante, and they could take those chances. Personally, I think Mason Mount or Pulisic in that role would have given you 80 to 90% of that pressing that Kante did today, but also be able to convert those chances when they landed to them like they landed to Kante. And the irony of this game is really funny to me because you know what? Lampard played the 3-4-2-1 system, which was Graham Potter's preferred system, like we've discussed several times on this channel, and Chelsea looked really good in possession and created some clear-cut chances, but they couldn't finish those chances, which is exactly why Potter lost games at Chelsea. Look man, I'm not even a Chelsea fan, but I'm starting to get very angry whenever they show Todd Boehly's face sitting in the director's box. He just seems completely clueless, and I feel like it's just a matter of time before the fans are asking for a change in ownership. And even with the Potter sacking, couldn't he just have waited till the second leg against Madrid was over? Because I feel like Potter would have done a better job across these two games than Lampard has done. But anyways, I rest my case. Lampard bottled a great opportunity for Chelsea over 2 legs, and Chelsea's season is officially over if it wasn't over already. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.